We're rolling. We're good.
All right. Okay, so one thing that you guys need to know about me is I'm a big fan of English rock bands. Specifically, like, I love the Beatles, I love the Rolling Stones, and The Who is also a band that I really like. It's comprised of 4 members originally, Roger Daltrey, Pete Townsend, Keith Moon, and John Entwistle. I believe that's how you pronounce that. They were formed in 1964, and they have released a very diverse selection of albums since then. And today I'm going to kind of give you a little rundown of all their different albums and how they've progressed as a band since they were formed. Okay, so this first one here is, what? Oh,
It's okay, just go ahead and
there we go. I think I accidentally bumped it. Okay. All right, so this first one was their debut album in 1965 titled My Generation, which was after the single that they released with the same name. And according to Rolling Stone, this song was kind of had a double meaning. At first, it was kind of a dig at their elders, like, you know, making comments about how they're entitled and whatnot. But it's also, Pete said in an interview, that it's also a song about how he's like afraid of growing up and afraid of like adult life. And this album was like a very traditional English rock style, kind of like Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And this was released to some critical acclaim. Critics like this quite a bit. Their second album, a quick one, was debuted in 1966. This album was actually renamed Happy Jack for the American release because of the fact that Happy Jack was a single that they released in America and did rather well, and also because they deemed the name A Quick One too suggestive for American audiences. This was a more pop-based album, and it was received well by most critics. Its medley titled A Quick One While He Was Away was received especially well. Okay, so this next album, titled The Who Sell Out, was released in 1967. It was where they started to experiment a little bit more of like a psychedelic rock type of thing, and this album in specifics was kind of poking at pirate radio stations were appearing at the time, where essentially it was illegal FM radio transmissions. And so they had, and it was also a poke at like when bands would sell out to companies and stuff like that. So they had like a couple songs were like advertisements for Heinz Baked Beans and Odoromo. And this album, in its time, was not received very well because they were deviating from like what people kind of knew, what they were used to. But since then, people kind of grown to like it. It was kind of before its time. Okay. What the heck? I hate this. Okay. Tommy was their album that they debuted in 1969. I actually own that one on vinyl. It's purchased at a store. But this one was a double LP, and it was a rock opera about a boy named Tommy who was dumb, deaf, and blind, but was like really, really good at pinball. And so the whole album was basically based around telling the story of this boy. This one was received really well. People really liked the fact that they wrote a whole album telling a story. Who's Next is my personal favorite. It debuted in 1971. I also have that one. And it has some of their most popular songs like Baba O'Reilly and Won't Get Fooled Again. Again, some of my personal favorites. This was originally an incomplete album known as Lifehouse, but they decided to switch it over to Who's Next. And this album cover was actually like one of the last designs they came up with, and it wound up just being them urinating on this building here. Lovely. And then after that, they released Quadrophenia, which was in 1973, and it was their highest ranking album, which peaked at number 2 on both U.S. and U.K. And it featured songs like "Love Reign Over Me" and 515. The Who by Numbers was released in 1975 and almost wasn't a thing. The band was kind of breaking up at the time, but they managed to stay together for this one, and it was received rather well, and it had some good songs on it, like Squeeze Box, which was one that people really liked because it had double meanings in it as well. Who Are You was the last one with their drummer, Keith Moon, before he died of a drug overdose, like just weeks after the album came out, which is sad because he's sitting on this chair that says "Not to be Taken Away," which is somewhat ironic and morbid at the same time. Despite this, the album single under the same name was still rather successful and is played on classic rock radio stations rather often. Face Dances is the last one that I own, and it features their new drummer, Kenny Jones, and it goes back to more of like a basic rock kind of style, and some fans were like turned off by that because it deviated a lot from what they were doing previously. It still did somewhat well though. The Who then put out It's Hard, which was their final album without with their bassist John before he passed away, and it was released in 1982, and it was pretty lackluster. This is where they started to decline. They did have a song like Eminence Front, which is used in a lot of Kia commercials nowadays, but that's about it. And then their final recent album was Endless Wire, which was just kind of a mess, and it featured like a new bassist, a new drummer. It was all over the place, and people were really not a big fan of it. So I just want to thank you for listening to me talk about The Who and their discography, and I hope you learned a little something. Thank you.
654.